Welcome to Financial Planning Explained. I'm your host, Mike Menninger, certified financial planner, owner and founder of Menninger and Associates Financial Planning. To my immediate right, I'm joined by Kyle Ryan, also a certified financial planner and chartered financial consultant, one of the associates at my firm. And most importantly, I'm pleased to have as my guest, Reverend Scott Mitchell, who is a staff minister at Life Celebration by Givness. Scott, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So what today's topic is going to be is sort of an extension, if you will, to estate planning in that Scott specializes in funeral and final expense planning, which is a very interesting topic that is maybe thought of but not addressed. And so I think this is a terrific topic for today to be able to discuss, what it is that you do and to be able to provide our viewers with the things that they need to think about in advance of as part of their estate plan. But this is a little bit, you think of estate planning more from the financials, at least we do. This is a little bit more of handling some of the details approaching or at the funeral. So Scott, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do and who you work for.
Yeah, well, you already shared, a little bit of my credential of being a reverend. So I'm an ordained minister. And you might say, well, how in the world did I go from being a pastor to getting into the funeral industry? And I was actually pastoring in Bucks County and the local funeral home. Whenever we had a funeral from our church, we would go to the local funeral home and got to meet the main director and supervisor there. And he started asking me to lead funerals for people outside of my church because he just liked the way that I brought energy and positivity to a very difficult time for families. And so I started leading services, and then they asked me if I would become their staff minister. This is back in 2006. Their staff minister, because they had many families coming in who weren't connected to a church or to a parish. And as a non-denominational minister, I was able to kind of meet with the family and celebrate their loved ones. And so they actually trademarked the concept of life celebration in the year 2000. So we are the Life Celebration Network of funeral homes. But on top of being staff pastor, a lot of my work has also delved into the final expense and planning realm, where I'm also helping families plan ahead. Nobody wants to talk about death, but as I think we all learned during COVID in particular, it can be a lot sooner than we had anticipated, unfortunately. Yeah. And when somebody comes into a funeral situation, when somebody passes away, especially if it's sudden, there's lots of decisions that have to be made in a very short window of time, like 24 to 48 hours. And so a lot of families need to realize, hey, especially if you've got an aging parent or you are the aging parent, you don't want to leave a burden to your family. You want to leave a blessing, and you want your kids and whoever's coming behind you to not have to stress out about all these decisions that could have been made and planned ahead of time.
That's absolutely, planning is something, we're all about the planning piece. And, we touched a little bit before sitting here on the set. You talked about a lot of things that also should be done. We think about it from, again, the financial perspective, making sure that for younger people that their children are going to be taken care of properly in the event of the loss of both parents, or for a single parent, the loss of the parent. And then we talk about what happens to the distribution of their assets. But what you're referring to is more of the specifics of the financial and the just events that need to be taking place. You had there was a little, that thing. Mm-hmm. What do you call it again?
This is a final expense planning kit. To some extent, maybe a little bit of estate planning as well. And this helps me help families guide them in what kind of things they need to start talking about and thinking about.
Well, tell me more about it, because you had this one folder that, and we think about this, we run into this. My goodness, my mother died or my spouse died, and we have no idea how to get into all of their email and their accounts, and they don't even know what they have.
Yeah.
And we hear about that. Now, in many cases, or shall I say most cases, we know everything there is to know as far as their assets go, but inevitably stuff that comes in through email and stuff we don't know anything about. So that's something that you help with.
There's no question. And part of my practical training, education into this world of final expense planning really was with my parents. So part of my story, you kind of asked me to share about myself. I'm married. I've got 3 adult children. One is special needs. And during COVID, just being real, my son and daughter-in-law, were supposedly working from home. Next thing you know, I'm a grandfather. And
well, about 9 months ago.
I'm up. And but we took in my parents. In 1998, we bought a house and brought them in to live in an in-law suite. And thus began my informal, formal training in all the transitions and things that seniors go through, including my dad getting dementia. And so I became power of attorney. And I started asking my dad, where's all your important documents? And he said, down in this drawer, this big old desk that he brought with him into our house. And it was a total mess. And so one of the things I learned is you need to make sure you have all your important documents. Some seniors and families don't even know what those are. And some of them don't know where they are. Yeah. So what we did in our kit is to put together just a simple envelope system for important documents. So one is having a last will and testament, because if you don't have that, guess who's going to take over?
Yeah, right.
The state of Pennsylvania, right? And they're going to assign an executor for you because you didn't have one in your will. And they're going to determine how things are going to go. And it may not have been what you wanted. So it's important to have a will, a living will, right? Advanced medical directive. What I want or don't want if I stop breathing, if there's no hope of quality of life, do I want to be kept alive? Artificially, those kinds of things were resuscitated. Power of attorney, which I just mentioned, I was for my parents, and there's medical and financial power of attorney, and you want it to be what's called durable because that means it lasts until a person passes.
Yes.
Okay. And then after that, the executor would take over.
Correct.
It's good if it's the same person to be the executor and power of attorney, and you can have more than one as well. Additional legal documents, life insurance policies. Millions of dollars go uncollected. I know you both know this.
Oh, yeah.
Every year because somebody didn't know. Mom or dad had a policy. And that would have been true for us. My dad in that drawer had 3 policies I found, and I showed him and I said, Dad, what are these? And he said, I've never seen them before in my life. I said, well, at some point you did. And 2 of them were active policies he got out of the Navy when he came out of the Navy. And so we did some things with those policies, but I wouldn't have known that we even had them and would not have collected on them.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, please.
So we've had many situations where all insurance operates on anniversary dates. And this goes back to the concept of being able to have access to email. Because if you paid insurance policies on an annual basis, or it's paid up, but you get a statement on an annual basis and it's electronic, that's why a lot of people don't know they have something.
Yeah.
Because if they aren't getting an annual statement in the mail, then it's showing up in their email.
Yeah.
And so that's why we always suggest that they either have a joint account or the estate account remain in place beyond 1 year, particularly for insurance stuff.
Yeah.
And something to also be careful of is the mail post office, because post office, when you request, if someone dies and they're by themselves, you're going to get rid of the house, the forwarding is only for 6 months. So that's just stuff that part of the reason why policies or insurances go unclaimed, because a full year goes by. And that is why it's important to understand it in advance. And to your point, have it documented, because if someone passes away unexpectedly or prematurely or whatever, what you're talking about here is paramount for organizing the estate. And I apologize for interrupting.
Yeah, no, but it's so important because so many people, their kids, their survivors don't know where things are at. They don't have passwords. They don't have account numbers. They're going on a hunt to try to find all this information. Why not make it easier on your family?
Absolutely.
If you're going to trust somebody to be power of attorney, if you're going to trust somebody to be the executor of your will, make sure they have all that access that they need right from the start. A couple other things: birth certificates, marriage license can be really important. If a spouse passes, their death certificate is a really important document, especially if their name is still in the deed to the house. because you don't have to take somebody off the deed of a house. You can leave them on. And then if that house gets sold, you just need that death certificate to show that they have no interest in the house.
You also find that, and this occurred with my parents' parents, is that one dies, then the second one dies. You need both of those death certificates because you never know if all of a sudden an asset shows up, unclaimed property, and you're hearing about that.
Yeah.
You need to be able to follow the whole lineage and be able to demonstrate that I, 4 generations or 4 people later, am truly the beneficiary. So maintaining those death certificates are very important. The marriage certificate as well. So just point that out and supplementing what you're saying, but thank you.
Absolutely. For families that get cemetery property, there's usually some type of deed, of course, that shows that you own that little slice of property. Military discharge. So my dad was a World War II Navy vet. And one of the things I was able to do, and now I help families do, is access veterans benefits. A lot of people don't even know what's available. But with my dad's situation and when he got dementia, when my mom passed in 2011, his dementia went to new levels. So we started to access things through the VA, got him into the medical system, got a VA doctor, got prescriptions that were mailed to him every 3 months, a supply, which was great. He needed home care, and we got some of that through the VA at no cost. Depends. We needed those just to get real. Aid and attendance pension when he needed assisted living. And then a burial, free burial at a national cemetery is provided for every honorably discharged veteran. Unfortunately, not reservists. They're not entitled to that unless they served overseas or served and was deployed for at least 100 days. But point is, a lot of veterans don't even know what they're entitled to. We help them know. And specifically, the savings on the cemetery, probably about $12,000 to $15,000 of what it would cost today to go out and secure cemetery property, the vaults, the headstones with engraving, death certificates, opening and closing costs. It's significant. So, it's really important. And that DD 214,
213 is or 214?
It's 214. DD 214 is the magic document. And I made multiple copies of my dad's document and put them in different places. So if you have a veteran in your life, make sure you know where that document is, and you can secure it through www.va.gov if you need to reorder a new one. So that's important. And Social Security card is also on this particular envelope, and then personal requests and wishes, things you're not going to talk to the kids about at the holidays, but how do you want things to go? Yeah. And do you want to, if you were to pass away, do you want a service at your church place of worship? Do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Those are things you don't want to leave up for grabs. I'm the last of 5 kids. I'm the baby. I'm the favorite. My parents came to live with me in an in-law suite. So I had this conversation with them. I said, Mom, Dad, I do not want to be fighting with my brother and my 3 sisters over things you should have made clear. I'm working now with a network of funeral homes. I'm doing pre-planning. Let's get a plan so we know what your wishes are, because I know that we will all agree to honor your wishes, whatever they are. Thus began the discussion, and we began to put a plan together for them.
I can't begin to emphasize how important everything is that you just said. You're basically talking about someone organizing their estate. And it's not even their financial estate. It's the affairs of their estate.
And in your experience, we know knowledge is very powerful. As we look at this, we know how each of those documents work. Not only that, we know the importance of them. Have you found that people with neither the experience nor knowledge of that it's a morbid topic, right? Is it easier to grasp if you've gone through it, if you've gone through something like this where you didn't have that power of attorney? Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're like, I need this for my children. Have you found that experience has bred more significance in one's wishes to get this done quickly?
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly better to learn through education, like what you guys are providing here. This is amazing, than it is to learn through experience, because you got blindsided. Somebody passed away and now you don't have any of this, or somebody got very ill and now they can't even function, and you're trying to get power of attorney. And guess what? You can't if that person can't intelligently sign a document for power of attorney. Now you have to go for guardianship, which is thousands of dollars more than what it is to just get a simple power of attorney. So the answer to your question is the more knowledge you have now of how to handle things, and to realize that it's not as bad as you actually think it is to talk about these difficult topics. It's really responsible. It's loving. And it's relieving some of the emotional burden from your family because they know what to do if X happens next.
Yeah. And if you've ever acted as a power of attorney, you know how it can still be, it's not the easiest thing in the world. You're running all over the place, getting everything done. It's still very cumbersome. But if you've done it, imagine how much more difficult it would be without it.
Yeah.
Interesting you say about the experience is that in our experience working with clients, if I had a nickel for every time we've had a client say, we went through this with our parents, we don't want our kids to have to go through what we went through. Hence, that's experience. And we all know, you can not wear your seatbelt all the time until you get an accident and you put your face through the windshield. That's the type of experience you don't want to have, but you're going to probably wear your seatbelt.
Yeah.
So this is really good. And it's a great opportunity for us to take a break. So stay tuned. We'll be back with you in just a few moments.
Do you keep up regularly with your investments? Where exactly are your hard-earned dollars going? Are you financially prepared for an emergency?
I'm Mike Menninger, founder of Menninger & Associates Financial Planning. We believe that education and knowledge are powerful, and we want our clients to understand why we are making the recommendations that we make. It's your money, and you deserve to know where it's going. Because it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. So call us today to discuss your financial concerns. Welcome back to Financial Planning Explained, and I'm delighted to be here with Reverend Scott Mitchell, who's really talked about some of the planning stuff that you really need to do, all the documents and having a folder, having it in place. And you're doing your children a giant favor. Or if you're the child, we strongly encourage you to get your parents' stuff. And it's not even their estate, it's their documents in order. So we're going to pick up with one more thing, and then I'd like to start talking about a little bit more of the pre-planning, which is something that you are an expert at. But you also have this sort of like the estate plan, and I'm just cautious about that. But talk to me about that folder that you have that really lays out all of the important things that your kid should know.
Yeah. So one of the things that we put in our planning kit is what's called an emergency record guide. It's personal, confidential. Usually family has a copy, and we have a copy at one of our local funeral home locations. It only comes out when it's needed, or if somebody has an address change or phone number change or contact change. So what's inside here on one side of the page is vital statistics required by the state. Every state's different. Here in Pennsylvania, this is what they require. And this is in order to issue a death certificate. When we're born into the world, we all get a birth certificate. When we die, we need a death certificate. And there's certain things that are absolutely necessary to get that. And then those death certificates are what carries on the next step of estate administration. So names, addresses, social security numbers, date of birth, they all have to be accurate. Names have to be spelled correctly based on their birth certificate. Parents' names, mother's maiden as required by the state. Again, I'm assuming there's some insurance fraud and things like that, which is why they're trying to make sure the person who passed is actually that person. Identity is really important. And then on the other side is who you want to be your emergency contact. Who do you want, say, the funeral home to talk to? If you've got 5 kids, trust me, you've got 5 opinions, okay? So it's good to know which one you trust the most, who you want us to be talking to. Children, grandchildren, sometimes great-grandchildren, brothers and sisters. This information is just used typically for our online obituary. A lot of people aren't publishing anymore in the newspaper, but they still want to have something on our website. People can access it. It can be emailed to whoever. It can be linked to social media like Facebook or some other social media to let people know so-and-so passed. Here's a picture. Write a tribute. What are you going to remember about them? Here's when and where services are going to be held. So that's the only reason we collect that information. And then on the back is service requests. Do you have a place of worship? Do you want a service at a church, synagogue, wherever? Are you going to be using a cemetery? Which one? Do you want to be traditionally buried with a casket or a direct burial? Or do you want to be cremated? And so those are some of the things we have to talk about, like what are those options? And I can jump into that if you guys want to.
I mean, you transitioned it really well.
Okay.
Please talk about it. It's one thing, someone passes away, a loved one passes away.
Yeah.
The next 24 hours, what does it look like?
Yeah. I mean, so typically you're going to call. If you're in hospice, hospice nurse has to come to sign some paperwork. Hospital, wherever, a doctor has to give us a little bit of information, but we're usually the next call to come, bring the person back to the funeral home. And if there's no pre-plan, then again, the family's in this whirlwind of having to make all these decisions. Typically within 24 to 48 hours, the family has to gather around a conference room table with the funeral director, honestly, on their terms, because you didn't plan ahead. And now everybody's opinions are going to come in. What do you want? So typically there's really 5 options. One is a traditional burial with casket and vault and burial at a cemetery. It's the most expensive of all the options. And I'll put some numbers around that. Typically it's $12,000 to $17,000 to do a traditional burial, depending on, what kind of casket you want, expensive, medium, or low end. You typically need a vault at most cemeteries in Pennsylvania. That's a cement box that's going in the ground. And then, of course, the cemetery property itself, if you own it, great. Then headstones, markers. And then on the funeral side, there's all the things that have to be taken into consideration. If there's going to be a viewing of the body, then there's things we have to do to prepare that body, cosmetology, embalming, dressing, casketing, all those things to make that person look as good as possible. But that's why it's the most expensive of all the options. And a little less than 50% of our families are still doing traditional burials. There's also direct burial. For a lot of our Jewish families, they don't usually have viewings. It's a burial first, and then maybe a memorial service or the graveside service, and then Shiva. So those are the 2 options for burial. And then there's 3 types of cremation. And some people say, how many ways can you be cremated? But
to me.
So here's the 3 types. One is called a full service cremation. And that's for families that it's still important for them to have a viewing of the body. And there will be in a rental casket. It's actually an insert that gets put into that rental unit. And it looks like a traditional burial. And the body and the viewing is there for the service. But then after the service, that person's body is going to the crematory, which, by the way, we in our network, we have our own crematory, so a person never leaves our care. Not every funeral home, very few funeral homes have their own. But the point is that person is going to be cremated, and then the cremains can either be buried or kept by the family, in a closet, or no, some do, or on a mantle, and then some are scattered. So we have scattering urns and things like that. But these, again, are all the details. We need to know what people want. But that's a full service cremation. It's the most expensive of those types of cremation, $10,000 to $12,000 usually for a full service cremation, because we have to do everything we normally do for a traditional and then add the cremation. You save on the cemetery side. Then there's direct cremation with memorial service, where a person's cremated first, and maybe you've been to a service where there's just an urn, flowers and pictures and things. And that's more and more popular for one important reason.
Cheaper.
Yep. It's a lot less expensive. It's half the cost of a traditional burial, probably in the $6,000 to $7,000 range. And then a direct cremation with nothing, where we take care of handling that and get the cremated remains back to the family, and they do what they want. It's a little sad to us because we're the life celebration home. We love to celebrate life and really, help families commemorate and memorialize their loved one. And, but in some families, that's not what they want. And so it's just a direct cremation. So you're looking at the $4,000 to $5,000 range just for something like that. Yeah. But those are the financial pieces to what's possible. And we have all kinds of other optional things that we can add. But the point is, if you have it planned ahead, it makes things so much easier to say, this is what I want, or this is what I don't want, or I'm not sure yet. But that's why you should meet with somebody to talk about what your options are, so at least you can have some education there.
Well, beyond that, so because we're running low on time already, is you also have connections for funding it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know we talked about before the show, the problem is if you don't pre-fund it, the risk runs that you burn through your money and now you don't have the funds to cover it, forcing your children to pay. And if they can't, there's a problem there.
Yeah.
So talk to me about some of the options that people have for advanced funeral expenses.
Yeah. So a lot of families don't realize, or individuals, that pre-funding your funeral is one of the wisest things that you can do for multiple reasons. We talked about, pre-planning and getting a plan is great, But when you fund it, it just makes it so even more easy for your family at the time. Nobody's having to bring a checkbook and write a check for this, that, and the other. It's all paid out of the trust. Secondly, the trust that we use with the financial group that we use, the money is safe and secure. You can't lose it. It's backed by the state of Pennsylvania, and it's underwritten, which, in banking terms is kind of like the FDIC in short. The other thing about the trust is you want to make sure that it's portable. Ours is portable, which just means if we went out of business or you moved out of state with a son or daughter, it goes with you. The funding and our plan goes with you to any funeral home in the United States. So you want to make sure portability is part of the fund. The other thing with us is we lock in all the funeral home costs, which is huge. We talked about inflation is something that we can all count on. And we eliminate inflation by locking in the costs that'll never go up. Not every funeral home will do that because they don't want to lose what things are going to cost in 5 or 10 years, but we're willing to do that for a family that's willing to set up this trust. The other thing about it is the trust earns a little bit of interest. We're not talking investment rate interest, right? But it's a small amount, typically $5,000 to $35,000 in this trust that at least earns something while the price is frozen. That's good math. It's also nursing home protected. And I think you were, Mike, alluding to the fact that about 50% of seniors in Pennsylvania are going to need some amount of time in assisted living, memory care, or nursing facility. And they're very expensive. Montgomery County, Bucks County, Philly County, where we're located in this area, up to $15,000 or more a month out of a person's assets. That's then what's called in a Medicaid spend down if they're beginning to run out of assets. So the irrevocable trust that we're talking about is nursing home protected. It's Medicaid compliant. So that's really an important feature. Irrevocable just means no one can touch it until the person passes. Yeah. And then this trust also, just from a financial standpoint, is a great way to pass through a little bit of extra money to family if they want to. It could be for luncheons, or it could be just to leave to their family tax-free, no inheritance taxes, no probate. It kind of goes around the will. But again, we're talking small numbers. The bigger financial picture, I know that's what you guys need to care for, but small potatoes for us is just helping a family have enough for their funeral and maybe a little extra for their family.
And you'd be surprised how many people are concerned about that we talk to.
Absolutely.
So I think that's terrific. And it sounds like a no-brainer, and that's part of the planning that you do.
One of the things that they're on there, you mentioned the portability of it, right? So someone comes to you, they pre-fund their funeral, they get the whole life policy in the irrevocable trust. Say the death benefit's $20,000, something like that, right? Mm-hmm. They pass away 20 years later. We know inflation, the cost of their funeral, maybe they had set it up. So yes, today's cost, it would have been $20,000. They can take this to any place in the nation and they will honor that prepaid price.
Well, I would say that legally, not another funeral home is obligated to, but the funeral industry is like a fraternity, and we have to work with out-of-state transfers from people who come to us with a pre-plan with another funeral home, and we'll honor that pricing. And most of them will, because one, it's business, and two, you're trying to serve a family that maybe down the road, you're going to have more funerals but now they trust you and they see how you work with integrity and care. And that's our trademark. The Life Celebration Homes have been known for decades, being one of the most caring groups. And again, if you don't plan with us, if you have an affinity with another local funeral home, please take this information and talk to them about it. And the biggest thing is that you plan ahead. What I've learned in life is death is no respecter of persons. Doesn't matter where we live on the planet. Doesn't matter the color of our skin. Doesn't matter how much money we make or don't make, or even what religious background we come from. Death is a common denominator. If we live long enough, we all have to deal with this, either for our parents, our family, our friends, and for ourselves. And for myself, my parents pre-planned in 2006, and I'm going to tell you, it was just a beautiful experience where my brother, my 3 sisters, and I came together. We didn't have to fight over anything. They already planned it, paid for it. All we had to do was get some pictures and music and help the funeral home with some life celebration tributes that made our memorial service for our parents something really spectacular. I do a lot also with special needs groups, adults. I have a special needs daughter who's 33, so I work with a lot of special needs organizations to get these trusts and plans set up for their adult clients. Some of them don't have any family, but we still, again, treat them with honor, respect, and dignity that they deserve, and work with any family to make sure the pricing, fits the situation. So yeah, I mean, I just love being in this industry. Maybe you're picking that up because, hey, funerals, weddings, as a pastor, are such an important time in a family's life. They're family reunions.
Yeah.
For better, for worse in some cases, but they're important.
It's a really wonderful thing you do.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. That was absolutely terrific. I could just see the value in what you do. So to wrap up the episode, do me a favor, take a peek in the camera and just tell people how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so you don't even have to call me Reverend Scott. Scott is fine, Scott Mitchell. My cell number, which is my work cell, is 267-441-6420. That's 267-441-6420. Or you can email me at smitchell, my last name, SMITCHELL, at lifecelebration.com. That's my email, and our website is lifecelebration.com as well. And you'll get to see our funeral homes. We have about 14, 15 funeral homes in southeastern Pennsylvania, Montgomery County, Bucks County, Northeast Philadelphia, and even some over on the Jersey side as well, serving families for decades. Still, again, family owned. We're not a corporation as far as, national, but we are really good at what we do. And so thank you so much, Mike, Kyle, for having me on the show.
Thanks,
Scott. Thank you very much. That was absolutely terrific. I learned a lot here, and it's making me think of all the different people, as in like everyone who could use this. So I hope everybody here has learned something today, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Financial Planning Explained. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching this episode of Financial Planning Explained. We strive to provide an educational experience for all of our viewers, and what we struggle with at times is topics. So if there is an idea or a topic that you would like for us to discuss on a future episode, please email us at admin@maaplanning.com, or you may enter it on the Contact Us page on our website at www.maaplanning.com. Thank you in advance for participating and helping make our show successful.